Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to another Chamber Check-In episode from Idaho's only five-star accredited chamber. Today we get to check in with Kevin Bailey. He's the VP, Impact and Idaho Nonprofit Center for the Idaho Community Foundation. Kevin has been a huge part of the chamber. Kevin leads our nonprofit council, as well as just a huge community steward. And so I'm so excited to bring him on today and chat about the Idaho Community Foundation and the Idaho Nonprofit Center, which not so recently have combined efforts to even elevate the impact that those two organizations make on the state of Idaho. I'm going to bring Kevin on right now. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, Paul. Great to be on.
Hey, thanks for carving out some time. I know you were just traveling recently. And I got to read a part of your bio really quick. On Saturdays in the fall, you can find Kevin avidly cheering on his Notre Dame Fighting Irish football team. And you were just there for the game, right?
Yeah, I was just there. You know, Boise State's first time visiting South Bend to play Notre Dame. It was super fun atmosphere. Not the result that Boiseans wanted, but as a Notre Dame alum, I'll just keep it at that. You know, it was fun.
I can't imagine. You and I were talking a little bit earlier about, the blue and orange becoming a Division I team and then finally making to that type of stage. I bet you the atmosphere was just incredible.
It was awesome. I love college football because of the pageantry, and it was so cool to see. Our tickets were up in the Boise State section, and it was so cool to see like how they filled that whole. I think they filled more than their share of seats. So really fun Saturday. So just
cool.
Not the outcome they wanted.
Right. No, I get it. No, cool. I'm glad you had that opportunity. So we mentioned that the Idaho Community Foundation and Idaho Nonprofit Center not so recently merged, again, to provide that elevated impact in the state of Idaho. For those that don't know, give us a little bit of overview of what both organizations do, kind of when they founded, why?
Yeah. Well, we'll start with the founding of the Idaho Community Foundation because it's a bit older than the Idaho Nonprofit Center. So Idaho Community Foundation was started in 1988, which in the community foundation movement across the country was quite late in the game. But it was founded by a guy named John Ferry, who was the chairman of Boise Cascade at the time. And, really a group of community members who came together and they said, we want to do something more and something long-term to get Idahoans involved in their communities and giving back. And community foundations are a great vehicle for that. Just for those who don't know what community foundations do, we help folks give to the causes they care about and to do so usually in a long-term mindset, in a long-term manner. So we just recently, and then I should say the other side of that coin is we give out grants to nonprofits all over the state and every county in the state. Recently, since 1988, we just passed our 250 millionth grant dollar out the door earlier this year. And so what started as a very small idea, an entity, has grown. And now, we're off and rolling into sort of the next chapter with the merger with the Idaho Nonprofit Center. And I can talk a little bit more about that. We, at the Idaho Nonprofit Center, which I led as the CEO for the past 4 years, myself and Steve Burns, the Community Foundation CEO, started coming together, about 2 years ago now and saying, how can we serve the nonprofit and philanthropic community better? And looking at what the Community Foundation does in terms of working with community-minded individuals to get funds invested in our communities and help them set up giving plans. And then the work the Nonprofit Center was doing with helping build nonprofit capacity, training, advocacy, research for the sector, really the industry expert for the sector. Bringing those two together felt like two sides of the same coin. And we completed the merger last November. So it's been just short of a year now, and we're off and rolling.
I really want to thank you for your efforts, you and Steve both, and the entire team. Actually, I think we always talk about the amount of nonprofits in the state of Idaho, and we hope that the ones that are kind of fighting for the same cause could combine efforts, right, to even provide more impact. So I think it's just way to lead, Kevin.
Yeah, we hope it is an example, and we can do more together. We're stronger together. We use that line a lot. stronger together. And, we're happy to help advise and guide other nonprofits who might be in a similar situation and want to think through that.
Okay. As almost a year has passed with the collaboration between the two organizations, what types of events in the community would we recognize from the business community or just an average citizen that the two organizations are a part of?
Yeah, so one of the things the Idaho Nonprofit Center was doing, which we brought into the fold through the merger, was Idaho Gives, and now having 13 years of track record with Idaho Gives, and this year passing the $5 million raised for that statewide giving campaign is a huge deal. I mentioned what we call the $250 million moment earlier this year, and so we actually granted out money to various nonprofits to really celebrate that moment and to give back in a way of just, again, celebrating the work that nonprofits are doing. And we have, we're launching later next month our first ever Philanthropy Hall of Fame. Other industries have, the Tech Hall of Fame or the Idaho Agriculture Hall of Fame. So now we have, as of this year, we'll be, you can go to our website to find out more, the Idaho Philanthropy Hall of Fame, and we'll be hosting a gem ball. Of course, it had to be a gem ball, right? With the word gem thrown in there, and we'll really honor some mainstays in Idaho philanthropy, and that'll become an annual tradition to celebrate that history, but also look towards the future and what could be in terms of getting people involved, giving back to the causes they care about locally in their community.
Okay, you'll have to send me the date on that that event, that unveiling, I guess. That's really cool. Okay, let's talk about the Idaho Nonprofit Center just for a minute. The Chamber has hundreds of nonprofits that are members of the organization. What would you say to those organizations on how they can utilize the Nonprofit Center?
Yeah, so the Nonprofit Center has been focused on, again, having this audience of members. We have over 800 nonprofit members across the state, and we're really their voice, but also their partner in helping them be as effective as possible in the work that they do. So whether it's the Idaho Food Bank, an arts organization, conservation organizations that are doing trail maintenance or water quality work, or even your all volunteer groups that have, maybe a special event to raise money for childhood cancer once a year, we're there for all of those different types of nonprofits in our state. There's about 2,000 financially active nonprofits in our state. And so we are at the Idaho Nonprofit Center providing training resources. We focus a lot of our training in good board governance, nonprofit fundraising, nonprofit leadership, especially at the executive level, because we know that is such an important lever to pull when it comes to building effective organizations. Really, just like any business, it starts, at the top in terms of leadership, and then our advocacy work and making sure that we have a presence in the State House to follow all of the bills that come through and how they might impact the nonprofit sector, so that we can inform our members. Similar to what a chamber would do, and let them know, how they can respond and get involved.
One thing I bet's on every nonprofit leader's mind is grant writing. I'm sure that landscape has changed, and I've heard so many different things about funding. And does the Idaho Nonprofit Center offer help with that?
Yeah, we actually have a grant writing course coming up, I believe, in 2 weeks, or might even be later next week. And so we've got a lot of communications going out about that. But yeah, it's a grant writing fundamentals class. And, that is an important revenue stream, whether it's grants from foundations and private corporations or public dollars from state or federal entities. And, we know we're in a climate right now where there's kind of this renegotiation of the social safety net at a federal level in terms of dollars available. And so there's expected to be less going into that pot, which makes, effective grant writing all the more important. And it also makes it more important to be, ramping up fundraising from private sources. And, that's where there's actually a lot of opportunity if we look at private sources. And, we're going to talk about this transfer of wealth in a moment, but getting nonprofits trained up on how to be better fundraisers outside of government grants and contracts as well.
We're all in sales, baby. We're all in sales.
That's right.
Okay, you mentioned it, but I think the title of this is Dream Big for Idaho. This is a new program that you're launching this year. take us through it.
Yeah, so it's we're experiencing in our country. It's not just Idaho, but it's really across the country. This the greatest wealth transfer that has ever existed in our country. And so Idaho is going to see. So let me start at the top. Big numbers first. Currently, the total net worth of all Idahoan households is about $793 billion. So that sounds like
Billion?
Billion. So that's about 390K, 400K per actual person in the state of Idaho. Obviously, that's stratified in different, brackets, tax brackets, and so forth. So it's not a straight across deal. But of that net worth, over the next 10 years, 30.6 billion is going to transfer from one generation to their heirs. So if you think of like the silent generation transferring money to the boomers, or that wealth is it's happening now. It's going to continue to happen over the next 10 years. And the opportunity in front of us, Paul, is to really encourage people to think about how to set aside 5% of their estates for charitable causes, so that they're making plans ahead of time. So let me just use a simple example. I wish this was the case for me, but I'll use this example. Let's say in my estate plan, I want to set aside $1 million for charitable causes. Let's say I really care about the Idaho Food Bank. What I would do is I would call up the Idaho Community Foundation. And I would say, hey, I want to put together a legacy gift agreement. It's going to be $1 million anticipated. And I want to set it up in an endowment. And what an endowment is, it basically is a perpetual vehicle that will fund in perpetuity grants to the causes that person cares about. So I could say, I want that $1 million endowment to go to the Idaho Food Bank. And then every year, somewhere between 4 and 5% of that will go out in the form of a grant. So about $40,000 going out the door every single year to that cause or causes that I care about, right? And over time, it has market growth too. So you're giving away 4%, market grows by 8, 9, 10% some years. So your principals continue to grow. And normally those funds after, sometimes 10, 15, 20 years have already granted out more than they started with. And then they'll continue to grant out over the next generation. And so it's a really long-term way of freeing up resources for causes that people care about. And so what we're doing is, with this data, this research, and the transfer of wealth, is saying, of that 30 billion that's transferring, let's break it down in your family. Talk about things that you care about. Talk about how we can set aside, whatever percentage is comfortable for the causes you care about, and talk with your financial planner about that. Then come to Idaho Community Foundation, set up a plan with us to give to those causes. And that's what we have expertise in, is how to help donors find effective nonprofits, find ways to give back to their communities in that way.
You're also doing an educational seminar here at the Chamber coming up soon, correct?
Yeah, so I'll be doing at the Nonprofit Council kind of a deeper dive on this. So if you go to our website, idahocf.org, which is scrolling across the bottom of the screen there, right in the homepage, there's the Transfer of Wealth link, and you can click on that, and you can actually hover over and get a report for your county. So I think I pulled the Ada County numbers, since we're talking about that geography in this context. There's going to be $10.2 billion of wealth transfer over the next 10 years in just Ada County. And if we were to capture 5% of that and turn it into those sort of endowed funds that I talked about, it would generate over $600 million in grant making for local nonprofits. And if you think about how big of an opportunity that is, these are the kinds of instruments and vehicles that sustain nonprofit missions for the long term, right? We've had a lot of nonprofits come into us over the last, as these federal circumstances are taking place, saying, I want to start thinking about the next time that there's going to be a storm in our financial world, and start to set up these long-term vehicles, because maybe they didn't have that to be ready for this one, but how can they be prepared for the next one? And these are long-term plays, but such an important part of the sustainability of nonprofits. And it helps also alleviate some of that pressure on the year-to-year fundraising that organizations definitely feel.
I'm looking forward to learning more and deeper dive and helping share and raise the awareness about this. I think it's brilliant. One way to fuel the future. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the business community here that's listening, how can they engage in the Idaho Nonprofit Center and the Idaho Community Foundation?
Yeah, especially as it relates to this transfer of wealth. I think we want to use this research as a conversation starter, and we also want to make sure people know that we're partners in this conversation, and that we connect people to the causes they care about, and have 30 plus years of track record of doing this kind of work. So this is not new work for us. It's perhaps a new way of framing the opportunity that's out there. But the business community, three things come to mind. I think encouraging their clients, their colleagues to include philanthropy in their estate planning. So even if they're not a financial advisor, start, talking, I think about like HR departments and how you can add value to your employees by talking about long-term planning, retirement planning, but also like charitable giving planning, right? A lot of business community members are board members at nonprofits, and we would encourage them to think about how they can get their nonprofits that they're serving on the board on to set up an agency endowment fund to work on that sustainable income stream, and that's something that we hold over 100 nonprofit agency endowments here at the Idaho Community Foundation. So we're a vehicle and a resource to help with that. And then just in general, being a cheerleader, inspiring others to give back by any method, right? And that could be, not everyone feels like, hey, this word philanthropist is like kind of a heavy word, right? You think, oh, I got to have a lot of money, I got to have $1 million. But, we know what we're trying to do is democratize philanthropy as well. Like Idaho Gives is a great vehicle for folks who maybe don't have a lot of money to give, but they want to get involved in their communities. And as little as $10 can make a difference. And so finding those ways to give back on a routine basis, I think about, I have 3 pretty young kids, all under 10. And, every time Idaho Gives comes around, we talk about who do you want to give I'll give them like an allowance of $50 each and say,
wow,
divide up your $50 into $10 increments and give to the things that you care about. And of course, they just went to the zoo on a field trip. So like zoo, and then the, Peregrine Fund, and then food bank, because, they're connecting community issues and things that they do with things they care about, right? And that's enculturating that value of giving back is a real part of like elevating this culture of philanthropy in Idaho. I think like giving is part of being human, right? And that's sort of the angle we're after. We want people to really live into that, right? To find their values and give through those values.
Kevin, great job helping me share the story today. We've been talking about Idaho Gives for a little bit. What's the date for next year?
Oh my gosh, you're putting me on the spot. It's the first week of May. I can never remember which dates are the first Monday in May, but the first Monday in May. And I just know, I think May the 4th Be With You date is part of that, which is always good when that lines up.
Okay, that's awesome. Go run Bloomsday on that Sunday and then come back down and do Idaho Gives.
Yeah. So we're excited for it. It's already starting to plan for it.
I'm sure it's a year-round thing. Kevin, thanks to you, Autumn, Kersey, for all you and your whole team do. Obviously, give a shout out to Steve and everybody on the team who really makes a big impact. Join us next week as we hear from Christy Chavez, the owner of Young Elevator, to hear about their milestone achievement. As you're driving down the road, you'll see their banner on our digital blade sign. It's a huge achievement for an Idaho company. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Paul.